Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hope you've enjoyed the morning sessions. I know I got a lot out of them, particularly as I made the lunch comment about, if water and solar panels aren't sexy, natural gas isn't either. So that's why I brought some great, iconic entertainment venues up here to share some stories around sustainability today. And we hope this is a lively conversation that you'll enjoy our banter. So we're super glad that you joined us for this session. So one of the things that links us together, and we're going to talk a lot about this today, is partnerships. And so I manage the sales side of the organization for Georgia Natural Gas, and you may wonder, well, why are you up here? Well, part of what we've been doing is we've been working on a new sustainability product called Greener Life. And so natural gas, by its very nature, and you heard a lot, but you've heard more about natural gas than you probably ever cared to this morning. I'm shocked by that, actually, and thrilled at the same time, because well, maybe gas is sexy again. But natural gas is a fossil fuel. It is the cleanest burning fossil fuel, as you saw from Dr. Gaddy's graphs that show that it's doing a lot of the replacing of coal in the fuel stack. But it still does produce some carbon dioxide and carbon emissions. And so we have created a product where we support a lot of voluntary carbon offset projects, and we can match the impact of your natural gas burn by retiring carbon offsets to essentially synthetically make you carbon neutral. So Joanne from Southern Company Gas was talking about renewable natural gas. That is also another option, much more expensive one, but the carbon offset pairing is our Greener Life program. And so we have two of our champions of that program that are up here with us right now, and that's just one of many things that they're doing in their sustainability journey, and we really want to talk about kind of all the others. So that's what's sort of bringing us together. So today I have with me Sofi Armenakian. She is from State Farm Arena and the Atlanta Hawks. Michael Lewis is from Georgia Aquarium, and Fiona Bell is joining us from Novelis, and we're going to talk a lot about our partnership. So quickly, if you'll just tell us a little bit about what you do at State Farm.
Awesome. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Delighted to be here, and thank you, Chris, for being able to really get us all together here to have an organic dialogue. Sofi Armenakian, Head of Sustainability of the Atlanta Hawks and State Farm Arena, and we are the world's first zero waste certified venue here in Atlanta. And I'm really proud of being able to lead the way when it comes to waste, understanding that this is a forever journey, and we'll share a little bit about what we've got going on and what we're looking to do in the future. Thank you for having me.
Hi, I'm Michael. I'm the Vice President of Projects and Exhibits at the Georgia Aquarium. I'm excited to be here and talk about all the things we're doing together, and all the things that we hope that others can do as well. My role is primarily on the major expansions, exhibits, sort of the new things, if you will, that we do in our facility. But on top of that, I'm in charge of all the messaging. So whether that's static graphic or a computer-based interactive or media or that kind of thing, I'm in charge of making sure that our message and educational moments get out to the public.
Hi, I'm Fiona Bell. I work for Novelis. We are a leader in aluminum rolling and recycling. So we take used aluminum and make it new again for beverage cans, for automotive, airplanes, buildings, and Coca-Cola is one of our largest customers. So we're grateful for that partnership as well as for them hosting this event today. And excited to talk to you about some of the education we've been doing around recycling and event venues.
Great. Well, obviously, very capable panel. I'm looking forward to the discussion. So, Sofi, you mentioned a minute ago, State Farm Arena is the first sports and live entertainment venue in the world to receive true platinum certification for zero waste. So could you talk a little bit more about what that entails, the efforts you might have in place, and how they became goals within your organization?
Absolutely. So in 2020, we started really looking at what could we do to begin this journey to becoming zero waste. And we all dealt with a lot of challenges at that time of reintroducing single-use packaging to ensure the safety comes first. With that, there was also an opportunity to continue retrain behavior. And, Michael touched on it briefly as far as signage. So the importance of really looking at what our setup was and what we wanted to accomplish, and doing so as an organization, culture-wide. It was an employee-led initiative that allowed us to really become not only zero waste certified which means that we're diverting 90% from landfill consistently. By a show of hands, anyone here been to State Farm Arena for a Hawks game or a concert? Okay, a good bit of us. So today we will have our 439th Zero Waste event, and we're all part of the solution. So whether we ensure we buy the right things to give to our guests when they enter the building, have the appropriate bins set up for you to be able to have the access to properly toss things away, to ensuring that back of house through our partners is set up accordingly, that things are truly being diverted or part of a circular story, are examples of things that go into place and accomplishing what we have. And what I'm super proud of is that as an organization, we've been able to get recertified not only once, but twice now, which when we talk about this forever journey, it's continuously figuring out how to be more efficient in what we've accomplished, but understanding there's so much more opportunity for us to continue being more sustainable and being open to learning what we can and sharing what we know.
That's great. So Fiona, in that partnership, part of what she was talking about, the signage, I see people wearing the Novelis shirts all through the arena, a lot of things. So you've partnered with them and a lot of other organizations and event venues. How often do you see this being top of mind for business leaders and the impact they'd like to have? And do you see consistent challenges, and what often are the most effective solutions?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, certainly in State Farm, there's thousands of people gathering for games and for concerts. And so trying to sort of message to that captive audience that, hey, that beverage you're consuming, let's make sure you put that container in the right place or compost or what have you to reduce waste becomes really important. So I think when we looked at this partnership, we had a couple of goals in mind. One was to promote more use of recyclable materials. So I brought a little visual aid. By the way, I do think aluminum is sexy. So if you've been to the arena, you may have used one of these aluminum 100% recyclable cups. There's a couple different sizes now that are offered to you with the Hawks and Coke and Novelis branding on there. And, you know, we're proud of that because that 100% of that, like I said, is recyclable and recycled, and that will come back to State Farm Arena as a new beverage container. So that's just one example. Another was education on the focus of recycling. So we're catching fans caught in the act of recycling in the middle of a game, bringing them down to the court for some recognition and a prize, and it's just another way to reinforce positive behavior. And then the interactions that we've had on social media have also, I think, proven to be helpful in terms of just, you know, continuing to promote the right behaviors. So it's a journey, but it's been a great partnership so far, and we look forward to taking it to the next level.
And I think that's really interesting. I know we're going to get more into talking about how the partnerships sort of beget other ideas about how we can work more closely together. But Michael, I want to turn to you. It's easy to understand why sustainability and conservation are integral to the work of the aquarium, of course. But you've chosen to invest in a myriad of programs that deepen your impact. So in addition to the Greener Life program. So how have these other efforts enabled the aquarium to be more effective in advancing sustainability solutions?
That's a great question, and I think one of the things I want to talk a little bit about is that we divide ourselves between an educational institution. First and foremost, we are trying to teach people about the wonders of the ocean, but we also have to entertain them at the same time, right? We can't just sit there and give them lesson after lesson after lesson. They won't come back. So what we have to do is find ways of making it entertaining. And I think one of the things that we did with our Greener Life initiative is to create an experience that guests could have that was fun, it was playful, it's a game that talks about what carbon offsets are and explains them in a very simple way for all people to be able to digest. But it also links it back to our story. So we talk about sea urchins and sea otters and the story behind that and how that's connected in. And I think that's one of the things that we have been able to do really well with our partners is to find ways that we have kind of common ground and then connect them into natural environments and natural methods that really create a really great experience for the guests. So.
Yeah, We love our little game and love seeing the kids push the little flames, but it is just, it's making it fun, it's making a game, it's creating the signage to boost around it. We were just talking about this at State Farm Arena on the loft level, which we now manage, and Novelis is the level right below us there. They're sustainability messages. That is what we have. It's the Greener Life loft level is what we call it, and it's all about advancing that messaging.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, if you guys haven't checked it out already, but when you come back to State Farm Arena, we also have our full court press art installation that we did in partnership with Novelis. So what we did was take 404 pounds of aluminum that were recycled from the arena, work with a local artist, and upcycled it into a really neat art piece. That is a great opportunity for a photo and a storytelling, and continue to make aluminum fun and recycling fun.
That's a great plug. It's a beautiful piece of art made up of Coke cans and ball cups, etc., into the shape of the Falcons logo. So it's very Instagrammable. Highly recommend getting your photo taken in front of it.
So building on that, we were just talking about the arenas. Both State Farm Arena and the Georgia Aquarium host millions of visitors annually. What's the most challenging part of implementing strategies at sort of this scale? And how have other partnerships with Georgia businesses played a role in that larger opportunity? And maybe what does that mean for the state broader?
I can start.
Sure.
So I think for us is we have, as you can imagine, we have multiple different departments. We have 450 individual job titles at the aquarium, just to give you a sense of it. And so you end up with a lot of kind of silos of different departments doing different things. And you mentioned our sort of culture. Every department is trying to better their sustainability practices, better, very simply things like, recycling cardboard that various products are coming in, these kind of things. And what we found is that there were all different departments doing all these really great things, but there was not a central hub that was helping the departments work together. And so what we have done is we actually are going to roll it out next month, which is basically a recycling wall. This is for our employees, and it's a place that you can go and deposit different materials. But beyond that, it's more about like explaining that this department, water quality, is doing this recycling, and maybe the life support systems department could recycle whatever that product is there. So I think for us, we recognize that we're doing all these discrete things, and we weren't being corporately intentional about it. And so that's what we're really trying to focus now on.
And I think I'll say that's a commentary in general about a lot of businesses. They're afraid to, if I don't do it the right way, somebody's going to think I'm being disingenuous about it. I think, we discovered the same thing. So we developed this Greener Life product, but we've been I'll say a green company in the space that we're in since our inception. When we went back and started looking at our corporate history, it's developed over time. Greener Life is now a new product that's manifested itself because of, I'll say, a demand for that sort of thing. But there's still a difficult time. So I know I've got a couple of my sales folks out here, and one of the hardest things is when you're selling gas, right, to someone, you're generally talking to someone in facilities or someone in procurement, and the link to sustainability, while that company may have a huge sustainability initiative, hasn't made its way to procurement. And I think I heard the panelist this morning from the jet fuel was talking about, I'm selling you BTUs, but I'm also selling it to you sustainably. And so kind of making the link of that's still a challenge, I think, to get it intentionally through all these companies. It doesn't mean anybody's doing it wrong. It just takes time to sort of build that up. Culturally, I want to come back to something you said a minute ago, and I think that's a great link between the two of you all, is Steve Koonin, who sits as the chair of the Georgia Aquarium, but he's the CEO of the Hawks. I've got to believe that has a lot to do with culture. Do you want to speak to that?
Absolutely. We need the resources to allocate to be the first in the world and continue to maintain that. So you need to have culture, you need to have ownership support, and being fully aligned and understanding it's all about being intentional. How are we doing what we do in a more sustainable way? Which ultimately is a goal for all of us, because we don't want to be wasteful with any of our resources, whether It's a budget that can be reallocated elsewhere, energy, water, waste. None of us want to be wasteful. So understanding that it takes true collaboration to get the things done that we do, and ideas are now flourishing from everywhere. They're not coming from the sustainability department. They're actually coming from different subject matter experts. And that's when we can really step back and go, okay, we're on the right path here, and everyone is a part of it, and everyone has a voice, and there's this momentum because it's exciting to be doing something that we can see the result of. So culture is absolutely important.
I'd love to echo what you said, Sophie, because when we first started conversations with State Farm, Hawks, about a sustainability partnership, it was really clear to us that you guys were taking it extremely seriously. I mean, the pursuit of the true certification to be zero waste, for example, stood out to us. In contrast from an experiment we did with a nationally recognized venue in another state that they weren't there yet. You know, we tried a recycling partnership that had very limited results, and I think it was because, you know, from the top, that just wasn't part of who they were. And so I would say to any business out here who's looking at forging a sustainability partnership, that's number one, is find a like-minded partner where you have this, you know, similar shared sustainability goals. Another is think about the unique purpose that your company can fulfill. So for us, it was recycling, and that's core to our business. So how do we, you know, sort of share with others what we know about that and try to lend our expertise? And then finally, how do you measure success? So the work that your team is doing to track how much is actually staying out of the landfill, how much aluminum and other materials are getting recycled, I think is essential.
Yeah, I'll say for both of the partnerships we have, because honestly, within our own organization, we're siloed. I've got a marketing department that's focusing on our partnerships and how to get our brand out into the marketplace, and then I'm running a sales organization that's trying to sell you gas. And not always did the two groups come together, and I'll say this has been really sort of a wonderful collaboration. Once, okay, I want to work with you guys because I want to get my brand through your venue because that helps me, right? That's part of what we went. But once we started having these conversations and peeling back the layer, like, we're having fun. Well, like we just had a conversation with the Atlanta Business Chronicle, and something's going to be coming out on that in a couple of days, where we had this similar kind of conversation, and we wanted to do it. Like we're not making you work with us to do it, and we're building off of each other ideas so that we can make it fun for the people that come to these venues. It's a fun way to learn and a fun way to engage, and it's not just about brand building. It's become more than that, and that's been really meaningful. And Steve Coonan just came and spoke to our leadership team recently, and just kind of shared a lot of his vision. I can see why you guys love working with him. What a fun guy. So as we look to the future, what do you see as the greatest opportunities for innovation and growth to advance sustainability solutions for event and entertainment venues? Like, what's the next thing you're looking at? What are the top trends you're monitoring?
Yeah, so, you know, navigating in a space where it hasn't been done before, there's a lot for us to learn. So we're always looking forward to piloting and identifying ways to be more efficient, more sustainable. And of course, it's all about what's going to happen with automation. How is automation and AI going to yield more efficiencies in the operation that we have set up? Because we've essentially designed our own mini micro MRF on site where we took a space that was not utilized. It's an emergency exit pathway, and now is our R3. And R3 stands for Resource Recovery Room, where we have our zero waste squad working. And our zero waste squad manually sorts everything to ensure that although we have the right bin set up, although we buy our aluminum cups that are infinitely recyclable, some people are still going to unfortunately toss it in the wrong bin. So the zero waste squad at R3 goes through all of that. So figuring out how do we really get more efficient in that space of that operation. And then one thing I just want to notate is that language matters. And when we talk about culture, you know, it's not the trash team, and there's no trash room. It's the zero waste squad that's extremely empowered and proud to be a part of that. There's job force empowerment. You know, we now have team members that are working, you know, third busiest venue in the country. We've got events all the time. So there's a crew working actually overnight to ensure that we're ready to go the next day for the next artist who's going to be loading in. So being mindful about language and the culture of that, and just being super intentional.
So I think for us, it's kind of multifaceted. There's the educational messaging component of it that we talked a little bit about. And what we've realized is that we can talk about these very lofty goals, these large things about like plastics pollution in the ocean. But we talk about it and the average guest goes, well, I can't do anything about that. So I'm just going to push that to the side and not think about it. And so what we've realized is we're focusing on things that they can do. Using reef-safe sunscreen, making sure that you recycle properly, using aluminum versus plastic. There are very specific, discrete, simple things that we can tell our guests, and that is movable and actionable for them. And we want to give them at the end of each of our gallery spaces a call to action so that they say, okay, here's what I can do. And then what we're trying to implement next as part of our master plan is to actually survey them 30, 60, 90 days later and say, there's a river cleanup coming up. Would you like to be part of that? What have you been able to do? Do you need more resources? Those are the kind of things. And so we're really trying to be very specific about the way we gather that information. And so that's a very simple, small thing that it could have much larger impact than just kind of talking about these larger moments.
So Sophie mentioned the importance of technology. Just want to echo that comment because that's huge. How do you take advantage of AI, of robotic arms and other things that exist today so that there's less manual sorting? And then I think the other thing that's on Novelis's mind is used aluminum is a critical input for our facilities. We can't run without them, so it is a feedstock and supply chain issue that we're talking about. And in addition to all the environmental benefits, of course. And so we're recycling about 84 billion used beverage cans every year worldwide. So I can't get my head around that number. It's way too big for me to process. But I say that because State Farm Arena is not going to get us there, right? It's an important partnership. It's a great opportunity to enhance recycling education in our headquarters hometown. And the question we've been asking ourselves is how do we scale efforts like that, nationwide or even around the world so that we are also working towards that goal of increasing the amount of aluminum that gets recycled every day.
And I think, building on that, one of the things and one of the projects that we're working on right now is, okay, if there's anybody out here who's a small business owner or is involved with a small business, you go, okay, well, yeah, that's great. You guys are State Farm Arena, you're Georgia Aquarium, you've got, hundreds of millions of dollars. And, it doesn't take that much to change the mindset. And so one of the projects that we are working on is we're going to work with a number of small restaurant owners that natural gas is a key component to a lot of restaurants and businesses. Our Greener Life program can negate the carbon footprint of that, but there's a lot of things that you guys are doing. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening at State Farm Arena around that? And I wanted you to mention your program too that you were telling me about earlier. Sure. So anyway, share some of those because there are little ideas that can go a long way.
Absolutely. So we're really excited for an upcoming event we're going to be hosting, as Chris mentioned, in September, where we will essentially show steps on how to operate more sustainably when you have a space like a small restaurant where you generate a lot of food scraps, you generate a lot of recycling, so whether that's glass, aluminum, cardboard. And so how can we go beyond what we call our green bubble and really continue to impact the community collectively and teach them steps and show them the resources and tools available to be able to also operate more sustainably. And so doing a behind-the-scenes tour and a number of activities we have plan for the day, to really empower those of us that have the opportunities to make decisions, to make a decision that is going to be more sustainable, but without it feeling like you have to do a lot to make it happen. You just have to be intentional and informed. I think a lot of us want to do the right thing. We mean to do the right thing. We may not have the resources. So hopefully it'll be a fun event, and we look forward to it.
Yeah, you mentioned just the hallway that you repurposed to do this. Just changing the mindset of, well, I don't have to throw that in the trash. I can have a separate composting bin here, or I can have, it doesn't take a lot, but those little efforts will add up. I think your Seafood Savvy program?
Yeah, exactly. We, as you can probably imagine, we consume a fair amount of seafood for our animals, and so we want to talk about that. We need to become more sustainable in that space. If you think about it, the majority of the food that you buy is farm raised when you're talking about pork or cattle, those kind of things. But with fish, the majority of it is still wild caught. And so we are pushing to not only in our industry, but across all industries to come up with ways that you can have more sustainable fisheries. And so we're trying to leverage us along with a lot of the other zoological institutions to promote what we're calling Seafood Savvy, which is explaining to people what is a good seafood to eat, what is a not good seafood to eat, why that is, why we're constantly updating that list from it is okay, it is being sustainably caught or raised to something that is not. And so it's a way for us to really explain that to guests and to people. And then we're working with local restaurants, local farmers throughout the Southeast to help them better understand that as well.
I'll add, the Greener Life program we have now has grown to over 30,000 residential customers here in the state of Georgia. We started at 0 5 years ago, so we're getting ready to celebrate the 5th anniversary of that. So it's important to residential customers to do that. That's over 6% of our customer population in just 5 years. We have now retired over 440 million pounds of carbon dioxide equivalents in the last 5 years. We're proud of that. And I'm proud to say that 18 million pounds of that came from the partnership with these two, of that 440 million pounds. So they're definitely setting a direction. But what started as kind of a glimmer in our eye is now turned into almost 500 million pounds of benefit back to the environment. So building off that, I would love for you guys to share your different organizations' future opportunities or goals that might be on the horizon for sustainability initiatives, and how do you envision that impacting your community, and maybe because of the venue we're in, specifically the state of Georgia. So Fiona?
Sure, happy to start. So certainly Novelis, like many other companies, has made a commitment to become carbon neutral over time. And there's a lot of focus company-wide on how is it that we will go about that journey. And the biggest way is by continuing to increase the amount of used aluminum we consume to make new aluminum again. So today, I mentioned we're in a number of different sectors. So when you look at our average across all the products that we make, we're at about 66% recycled content. And so the goal is to go up from there. And with that, so a big focus is how do we try to make it more available? How do we get less, going to the landfills across the nation? I mean, just here in Georgia, one of our customers did a research report not long ago and estimated, I think it's like 18% of used beverage cans actually get recycled and come back to companies like Novelis to be remelted into new aluminum. So huge opportunity for improvement right here. But countrywide, I think our average is around 45%. So also big opportunities throughout the country. And so not a local policy, but just even at the federal level, there's a bill right now in Congress that we've been lending some support to that would basically help fund more recycling infrastructure projects in rural communities that don't typically have recycling already set up. And, you know, it's a small effort. It's just one little piece of the pie, but it's an effort that we think will help because there's just so many locations that lack the resources.
Anything you?
Sure. I think for us, it's about the messaging and the explaining of what's going on. So most people would probably think that the aquarium uses an enormous amount of water, and if you look at our water bill, we do. But we recycle 99% of our water, and I don't think people realize that. It's actually slightly over 99%. And so we've done a tremendous job with that. Like we've really figured out ways that we can reclaim water from various locations. We can recycle, we can filter, and so that's been a major story. Where we have to move into is some of these other areas, like the sustainable seafood that I was mentioning before, and some of those other things that people might not think about, and so we need to really bring those front and center and work on that.
Yeah, well, first I want to acknowledge what both of you just said. Fiona, the work that you're doing with policies, so instrumental. I think more incentives to get a lot of us to want to do the right thing is super important, especially here. And then 99%, that's incredible as well. For us, there's a number of things operating more sustainably. I mean, certainly we want to maintain being a zero waste venue, but that's just one thing. We pursued that because it hadn't been done before, and we're in the industry of sports and entertainment, so we're extremely competitive. But we ultimately play for one planet. So for what we're looking to do is a study coming up soon of our chiller plant and looking at redesigning our central plant, which is going to yield tremendous efficiencies, especially because of how old our building is. But that's okay, because there's always room for opportunity as we continue to work on some of the things that we're good at and learn from many what we can do continuously better. So there is no finish line, and at the end of the day, we just have to work collectively.
I was just going to add one thing that you said to that is, you're in a competitive space and you have other competitors. Another one of our partners is Live Nation. And Live Nation is working on going zero waste on their venues. And the interesting thing is, I was talking to Sofi about it. She said, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. We've been working so closely with them. So even though you're competitors in this space, you're still partners, and you're working to learn and leverage together." Yeah,
we love working with Live Nation, and happy to host them every time they come to State Farm Arena. And it's exciting. And Fiona and I were talking about this on a panel a few months ago. When you start seeing artists actually require certain measures in place before they come to tour in your venue. So Billie Eilish, for example, we got a chance to host her first ever zero waste show here in Atlanta, and she's a huge advocate for the environment. But what was great about that is her mom, Maggie, came out to our R3 space I was telling you guys about, recorded the entire space, was just so thrilled to see that things were actually happening. And it's exciting to hear artists requiring you to have measures in place, which just shows where the future is headed, and we want to be prepared when that's a requirement.
Dave Matthews did a similar thing at Ameris a couple of weeks ago, and he had a booth set outside where you could come by and learn about it, and he's really working with Live Nation he wants all of his events to be zero.
Yeah, that was Live Nation's first zero waste event.
Yep. Yeah. You were getting ready to say something.
I was going to actually mention, you mentioned your chiller plant, and about 5 years ago now, we did a retro commissioning of all the entire mechanical systems in the aquarium. And we actually were able to save about 8% of our energy use. But more importantly, we're actually able to increase the efficiencies in some of the areas. So the guest comfort became better. Some of the animal areas actually became better than we had been able to do for 15 years. So there's some opportunities like that you could bring on to your institution and be able to do that.
So we have about 10 minutes left. I want to open it up to see if there was any questions for any of the folks on the venues.
smiling at my friend Sofi. So you guys did a phenomenal job. You just mentioned Billie Eilish, and we've worked with her on a series of initiatives. And my question to you is, how much are you all able to shift this kind of conversation to athletes and entertainers? I know there are certain ones that are now having requirements, but for example, I work with a Major League Baseball team that 5 of their players have started their own tree planting garden, right? So how are you all leveraging your brands to reach athletes and entertainers, but more importantly, in a city like Atlanta, where you have the Atlanta University Center, you have Vine City and English Avenue, how are you all leveraging this work to the communities that really need us to be more sustainable for their, livability and for their communities as well?
Yeah, we have a platform to influence the good work that's going on. And I think one, continuing to do some of the work like we talked about coming up in the fall, or community courts that we've got, that we recently did a partnership with State Farm and went out and did a planting session, had the youngest farmer in the country come by, and she taught others how to farm, what compost meant, and then how to harvest some of that food. So I think it's just being intentional about figuring out what else to do. And it's always nice when the initiative or the interest is organic for a celebrity and or an athlete, but you never want to force that. You meet when they're ready, and you really want to highlight that. So we like to not interfere with trying to win a championship. We're going to do what we can off the court, off the field, wherever you are, and then leverage what we can. When we do have some artists come by who are very interested in that, another one is the Lumineers. A big fan, had an opportunity to share the stage with Wes, the lead founder and singer of the Lumineers. And when they were in Atlanta, not only when Fiona talked about the initiatives around interacting with fans when we see them recycle, that's called Recycle and Win. So essentially, we observe behavior of fans as they're roaming around the concourses. And then when they're getting ready to throw something away, if we happen to observe them doing it correctly, we might walk up to them. So I might see Chris toss his bottle in the recycling bin, tap him in the shoulder, say, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much. We're Zero Waste Venue. We appreciate you doing your part." And when we partnered with the Lumineers, they gave us 40 floor wristbands, signed posters. And so we went around the building, recognized you for doing the right thing, said you and your buddy, we're upgrading you down to the floor because you just were seen recycling. And obviously, like you said, one venue is not going to change the world, but it's collective effort and continuing to do that, because maybe they pick up that behavior, and now when they're home, they might ask questions, or where they work. And you want to really change that behavior. So hopefully I answered your question, Daniel.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say. Stealing the ideas, that's the sincerest form of flattery. If that's one small thing you can do to set an example and somebody else can take from that and do something, that's a good thing.
And if they go home and tell a story about what an amazing time they had on the floor at the Lumineers, tickets they didn't even plan on having.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So this is a question for Michael. Sure. And I appreciate that the aquarium is marine oriented, but I manage the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge, and I'm here with my partners from the Okefenokee Swamp Park, and I'm shocked at how many people in the state of Georgia have never heard of the Okefenokee or know that it is the largest blackwater wetland in North America, and we're well on the way of becoming Georgia's first and only World Heritage Site. So I just wonder if you as the aquarium have considered doing any education or exhibits about this aquatic resource that is truly unique and endemic to the state of Georgia.
Yeah, actually, thank you for the question. I think I'll answer it in a couple different ways. The first is, one of our messages is all waters lead to the ocean. And so one of the things that we're trying to do with outreach is, promote water cleanup, river cleanups, those kind of things, and really push that in our educational programs, our educational outreach programs. So that's really our goal on that side, and to really help educate kids that will help educate their parents on why it's so important that we take care of the natural freshwater rivers and streams that are here, because ultimately it leads to the ocean. The other to answer your other question, we have a freshwater gallery where we touch on all the different habitats in the U.S. We also have an entire area about Georgia, but I do think that we probably should look at more of the Okefenokee. I will say in a former life, I might have been involved in the exhibits that were there about 20 years ago now, not to date myself too much. But it's a beautiful place, and it's an amazing resource there. So we definitely should.
Another one of our partners in Greener Life is the Scouts BSA organization, and I can tell you that I've taken probably 50 Scouts down and canoed the Okefenokee through the Boy Scout troops when my boys were coming through. Beautiful part of the state, beautiful part. Other questions?
Hi, I'm Angela Grant with Atlanta Gaslight. I'm just interested to know, how are you relating all of the sustainability measures to just the lamest terms to the everyday consumer? Like, I know for the aquarium, you mentioned 98%, 99% of water capture and recycle. So how many gallons of water is that? And how do you relate that to all of the people out to talk about that? Like, is that, 1 million showers, or is that, how many gallons of water, for how many swimming pools, really reaching out to the broader audience to really share about the savings with the billions of aluminum recycling. What does that mean? Like, did you avoid creating, 100 million new cans? So I'm just thinking about, what is that impact to just everyday people so that they can relate and connect?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I'm happy to share. And another example of our partnership with Novelis, after every year, we try to reflect back on what we accomplished that year. In 2023, we talked about how we diverted 3 million pounds from the landfill. And that was equal to the weight of enough basketballs to go to every youth in the state of Georgia. So we thought that was a fun analogy to do that people could relate to. The year before, we had 2.5 million pounds diverted. And that was the same year we had our peach court. For those of us who got to see it, it was pretty neat. So we thought, how many peaches is that? Well, apparently enough peaches to line up the state of Georgia from the northern tip to the southern tip. The weight of all of those peaches is what we avoided from sending to the landfill. So I think, and we posted that on our social media and various platforms to really share with our fans and engage with them. And then with artists, what we try to do is relate it for them, even in their dressing rooms. So we had, say, one artist come in, and we would say, we're going to, by avoiding this from landfill, it equates to this much energy of us playing on repeat your favorite song or one of the hit songs. So just figuring out how to make it, again, relevant, really simple, and for people to understand the impact that they have as well. Great question.
Yeah, for us, I think we do the same, very similar kind of thing where we, say that how many whale sharks we were able to, weights and that kind of thing. But again, I think it's back, for us, it's a little back to making sure that people have something that's actionable so that we can tout how much water we saved. We can tout all these things, and we do, and it's wonderful. But we also want to make sure they understand that when they go home, when they go down to a coral reef, there are certain types of sunscreen they should use and certain types of sunscreen they shouldn't use. And so those kind of messages are what we're trying to push forward, more than just what we're doing. So it's follow our lead, but also, you're not going to have a 6.3 million gallon aquarium at your house. So what are the things you can do that relate to your day-to-day life?
So
I just was going to say, I appreciate the communications challenge you've offered, because I was looking at some older material we put together on facts around, recycling aluminum requires 95% less energy than producing primary aluminum. And there was something in there about the power for your iPod. I don't know about you, but I don't know where my iPod is anymore. So thank you for the reminder that putting those into real world relatable terms is helpful.
So one of the things that I really enjoyed listening to this morning was all the great things about this state and all the things that are happening here in Georgia. And these venues are about entertaining our people that live here, but they're doing so much more than that. and it doesn't take a whole lot of action to drive meaningful change. And so I'm very grateful to all of you for coming up here and sharing your time with me today. If you'll welcome them off the stage and thank them for being here today, I appreciate it.